Cool. So we're going to start officially then now with our little talk. And from my side, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see familiar faces and then a whole lot of strange names and things, which is always so nice to know that somewhere in this world we're reaching out and connecting, which is basically what it is for me and for Jonti, is just this connection and sharing and being with you this evening.
Thank you, and it's really beautiful to be with you, and I love doing stuff with you. We've been friends for 16, 17, 18 years, a long time.
Over 20 years.
What we found over time is this incredible complement of what we do and what we explore, and how all of this comes together and keeps on expanding in this amazing possibility of movement, of touch of the body. And really it's all about the different expressions of the body, and to share this with you tonight is fabulous. So thank you all for coming to share with us.
Cool. So we're going to just chat a little bit about what ecstasy means, or the ecstatic body means for each of us, and it'll be two different perspectives, so that we get, like a lovely discussion going later on. And then we've got some series of exercises that we're going to do. They're very simple, and they are really just to open up the experience a little bit. So we're not going deep into some kind of ecstatic state tonight. You may, who knows, but we really just want to lay out almost like a little bit of an introduction for you, and then we'll end off with questions and answers.
And ecstasy is actually sometimes quite easily accessible. So when we say don't go into this ecstatic state, or it might not happen, it might as well. And sometimes it might be more accessible than we think it is.
Cool. So I've just got a few slides I'm going to share with you. I always think in pictures, so it makes it much easier for me to be able to talk if I have some pictures to talk to. And so I started thinking there's so much really to talk about, and one could go on for hours and hours and really talk about this topic in great depth. But I thought just a little idea. So this slide, what I'm trying to say is that there's a whole life out there, that we are surrounded with. There's a whole lot of sensory input coming in, but our brain slices that up and says, okay, cut out up to 95% of the sensory stimuli that are coming into our body through our senses is ignored by the brain, and we focus on a sliver. And we do that because we have to survive, and we have to be able to operate in this world. We couldn't kind of like really be in this totally connected, ecstatic state forever. We wouldn't get anything done in a practical sense of the word. So that is how we operate. So when we talk about ecstatic states or ecstasies, one way of looking at it is to say, well, we're going to take this little portal and we're going to open it up and in our brain. And there are two ways in which this can be done very basically. The one is the kind of the withdrawal ecstasies, where one goes into deep meditation, or one goes into breath work, or one goes into stillness, or one can go into sensory deprivation. But basically what we're doing is we're trying to shut things down so that the mind stalls, and it then goes into an altered state. It goes into, if you really have practice, you're good at this, you will go into an ecstatic state. The other way The other way in which, and then of course there are extremes of this, so we can, people might take it into very extreme lengths. So I just thought this was quite interesting to make the point. The other way is to intensify ecstasies. That is, we can dance. This is like quite a little shamanic dance, or we can get into music and stimulus and drumming and things like that. And so we then overload the brain. So the first one's a parasympathetic approach where we take everything down, and this one is a sympathetic approach in the nervous system where we intensify everything. There's an overload and we go into an altered state. And both work. And when you do one after the other, it works even better. And of course, the intensity ecstasies can go quite wild. So what happens in either one of these situations, the one where we go into the parasympathetic quiet and the one where we go into the sympathetic overload, is that the brain very briefly integrates and unifies, and all the brain areas start to connect, and we go into a state of an altered state, which can be an ecstatic state where we feel a difference. And we feel different. And in that moment, that little window on life opens up. And we have this, like, we're totally connected with the whole world. And we get feelings of wholeness. Suddenly we are part of we feel part of everything, the cosmos, the universe, total connectedness. And through that, we have possibility of empathy and social connections and interactions. At the same time, the ecstatic state also brings a self-awareness and a self-connection to self, and we can in those moments have creativity, insight, and problem solving. This is very, 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 very broadly speaking, because there's really a whole range of ways of being ecstatic, and there's subtleties to all of this, but this is basically what's happening. And when we get into this ecstatic state, we start to feel intense, joyful sensations, euphoria, rapture, elation. This is when we know that, we are firing on 110 neuron cells. We feel the unity, we feel the oneness with the environment, with others. There's an altered or detached perception of space and time. Sometimes it disappears, sometimes it slows down, sometimes it speeds up. And we have a deep sense of what is profound and creating meaning for life. And so we let go of the mundane reality. We really are out of that. Most times, this experience is ineffable. We can't talk about it. We can only know it. And it's not a rational experience. So really, when we talk about these things and mention these things, it really is something which has to be experienced, and something which ultimately doesn't have words. So,
So what's really interesting about some of this is that ecstasy is within us, and it's actually a lot more subtle than we think. So often we think of ecstasy in terms of this huge experience, and we look for this. We look for the fireworks, and we look for the hype, and we look for the fire that explodes. And that's a way in, that's the portal. But ecstasy is actually quite subtle. And at a deeper level, it becomes a way of being rather than something that we feel, and a state of being rather than a feeling or an emotion. So it's an energy that is constantly within us, that is our connection to life in every way. And it comes from the connection to life, the connection to others, that there is nothing separate. We are not separate from nature. We're not separate from the plants. We're not separate from the mountains. We're not separate from the oceans. We're not separate from the rain. And we're not separate from each other. We are all expressions of the same divine energy in the world. And ecstasy of that energy brought all of this into being. And every moment is an opportunity for us to experience ecstasy. And that's the subtlety. So it's not always the big experiences. Those are fabulous. There's no question of that. And they shift us. They shift our perception. They shift us out of something. They shift us into something. But it's what happens after that that becomes so important. And the sustainability of ecstasy is the subtlety of ecstasy. And it's actually in the density of the body. It's in every cell of the body. It's in the way that we vibrate with life, that every breath in is inspiration. Every breath in is life. And every breath that we breathe out is the release of that, the death of that. And the next breath is its own new creation. And a part of this is being willing to be in the moment, to be present, not to be living in the story, not to be living in the past, not to be living in the expectation, because that's what we bring to so many experiences, is the expectation of the experience. And immediately that takes us out of that present, that takes us out of ecstasy. So ecstasy is always, always present. And there's something interesting in this, because often, we look at ecstasy as being all this happy and joy, but sometimes it's not, because we can find ecstasy in the deepest loneliness, in the deepest sadness, in the deepest grief, because of the purity of the feeling. If we allow ourselves to go into the depth of that, where there is nothing in that moment other than the feeling inside of us, not what it's about, not what it's attached to, just that. That's ecstasy. And the subtlety of that is in the possibility of every moment and in the density of who we are. It's not only the higher states, it's in us as we are in this perfect moment of life.
Thank you. Brilliant. So I think we need to experience a little bit. So if you're willing to stand and move and join on this journey, that's great. If you just want to sit back and be an observer, that's also fine, up to you. But we're going to just start off with an exercise which I use a lot, and it comes from the shamanic tradition. It's used throughout the entire world in different ways, and it's shaking. So basically, if you think of your hands and you're doing a conscious movement, it has a speed, it has a range, but it's limited. But if you let go and you just shake your hands, really letting go, not guiding it, just letting it go, it's a difference. It's a totally different energy, a totally different experience, and a totally different result. It's going, instead of me guiding, thinking, trying to make this happen, I allow it to happen. So I'm going to put on 2 minutes of music. We're going to start with the hands and then take it into the shoulders, take it into the arms, take it into the back. Just like let your whole body shake with this energy. So it's not kind of like, it's kind of like, It's just 2 minutes, and then you're going to be okay. So let's go.
Stop, still. Don't move. And close your eyes and feel. So the stillness is where we feel the ecstasy. In Tantra, we talk about something called spanda. Spanda is the sacred tremoring of life. Everything begins with stillness. And then there's the movement, there's the creation, there's the action, there's the dance, there's the drumming, there's the whatever it is that we're doing. There's the action of that. And then there's stillness. And the stillness is where we feel the vibration. So ecstasy is a frequency. And in the stillness, we feel, we hear, we become aware of, and we experience that frequency. And that stillness keeps us in the body. So after the movement, after the touch, in the quiet of that breath, and in the moment in between the breath, that's where we feel the vibration. That's where we feel the ecstasy. So to learn to be in stillness, that every movement comes from that stillness. And that creates desire, leads to movement, to action. And then there's the stillness. And then we go back into another movement. And we keep doing that. The more that we can be in moments of stillness, the more we feel the vibration inside of us. So one of the most powerful ways we can do this during the day is just to keep pausing. Every now and then, just pause for one breath and feel that. And feel the breath entering into your body, of the breath making love with your lungs. And as your breath leaves the body in that quiet, and over time, your body wakes to the ecstasy of that. And the more we allow ourselves the moments of stillness, that's where we feel so much. So one of the ways that we get into that space is breathing. Okay. So one of the deepest practices for this is called a heart breath. So heart breath connects with our heart center deep in the middle of our chest, which is a master frequency of quiet, of stillness, of calm, of centering that brings us into ourselves. So if you're comfortable to close your eyes, please do that. And then put one hand or both hands on your heart center in the middle of your chest. And as you breathe in, have the awareness that you're breathing into that space in the middle of your chest. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out from that space. Slow, deep breath, as deeply as you comfortably can, not forcing the breath, and just allowing the breath to rise and to release into your heart. With each breath, become aware of the space in your heart, the vast, vast space in your heart center, each breath. Just be still as you can, and feel what's in your body. Feel the sensation, feel the vibration, feel life dancing in every cell in your body.
When you're ready, you can open your eyes again. So what's beautiful about this breath is it's the movement that we are born with and the movement that is with us all our life. And very often when someone says breathe, the focus comes somewhere, I have to use my diaphragm, or I have to use my lungs, or I have to use whatever it is. And we do that with all our movement. If we're going to reach for a cup of water, we think it's just the arm. I reach for a cup of water. If I'm going to do anything that's movement related, we tend to isolate our body into bits and pieces. So I use my hands for one thing, I use my legs for something else, etc. But if you take this breath now, and if you think that it's not just your lungs, not just your chest, not just your diaphragm or your nose, but it's your entire body that is moving as you breathe, down to your toes, down to your fingertips. And think that the movement comes from everywhere. And even when I do something as mundane as reaching for a glass again, it's not just that, but it's my entire body. I come, I get it, and I move. Now, the more the body is involved in the movement, the more sensation we feel, and the more open we are to connecting to the body, and the more pleasure that we will get out of that simple movement. So we've just devised a little exercise now which takes the breath and puts some movement to it. And the invitation is to start breathing again, but this time to consciously contract. So maybe you contract your hands and then slowly you release it with your breath. And as you do this a few times with your hands and release. Bring in your arms. Feel what happens when you bring all your arm into a contraction and slowly release. Then feel what it's like when you bring your body into a contraction and you release. So the exercise starts here with the hands, always with the breath. So always with the breath, with the hands, and ends with a complete body breathing in and expanding. So starting from the heart, and if you're not sure, you can follow me.
And be still, really still. Feel your body, feel the vibration. So the expansion of that, we go from breath to movement to touch. And the touch is a very slow, very gentle awareness of your body, of the contours of your body, curves, valleys of your body. And breathing with your movement, breathing into your touch. Feel your skin meeting your skin as if it were the first time touching your body. And be still, really still. The awareness of your body awakening. How expanded you may feel, how light you may feel. And this awareness of life force pulsing inside of you. So take a breath in, a deep, deep breath in. So the center of our body is our pelvis. And every movement that we do originates in our pelvis. If you want to lift your arm up, it originates here. If you want to change position, thank you, that's beautiful. If you want to change position, it originates in your pelvis. So this is the center of our body, literally and metaphorically. It's where the energy from the earth rises up to meet the energy coming in from the sky. It's where our balance is and where the dance of life originates from. So let's activate into the pelvis a little bit, first with our muscles. So just be aware of your pelvic floor muscles, as if you were desperate to urinate. And you just have to squeeze that a little bit and relax. So just squeeze those muscles a little bit and relax. And squeeze a little bit and relax, just for the awareness of the muscles. And if it feels really nice, smile and have a little giggle, because it can feel delicious when everything is waking up in your body. And now, as you breathe in, have the awareness that on your in-breath, your breath is coming all the way down your body to your pelvis, filling your pelvis with breath. And as you breathe out, coming back up to your heart. So breathing that energy in through your throat, down your belly, filling your pelvis and bringing it up to your heart. And again, deep breath into your pelvis and up to your heart. And now as you breathe in, all the way down to your pelvis. And as you breathe out, the energy come up to your throat. The energy coming, fill your throat. And as you breathe in, bringing it up. Again. And now breathing into your pelvis. And when the energy is there at the bottom, contract just for a moment and hold those muscles. And as you breathe out, let that move all the way through your body. So breathing all the way down into your pelvis and squeezing those muscles. Hold the breath. And squeezing. Carry on that rhythm. All the way down. Squeeze. And be still. Feel your body. Feel the vibration. Feel the sensitivity that's in your body. The awareness in your breath. In your fingers, in your hands, in your scalp. Feel your lips tingling.
So earlier on, we spoke about involving the entire body in the movement. And now Jonti mentions that the movements don't originate where you think they come from. They come from quite deep, quite central. The other aspect of movement is to give ourselves range. You know, it's kind of like, yes, we're moving, but are we just moving within a particular range of movement, which we tend to do. We tend to hold our postures and our range of movements in a contained way. But just imagine, I'm going to ask you to imagine making love. And if your movements are repetitive and the same forever and a day, I think your partner is going to go and watch TV. They'll just get bored. But think of what happens when we bring in a whole lot of variation just in our body, in our movement, the way we move, the speed, the range, the capacity to bring everything into the movement. How much more wonderful it is to something like lovemaking. I'm using that because it's such a strong image, but it applies to everything.
But you know, we talk so much about, and we've spoken about this, making love with life.
Yes.
And that's what it becomes.
So that's what I was about to say. It applies to everything, walking down the street, eating, swimming, whatever you're doing. And as Jonti says, it's basically making love with, love to life, or with life, with your whole body, with all your senses, with everything. So we're going to begin this movement exercise in the hips, because that is where we are holding most of the tension and through the day. And just imagine that you can move your hips sideways, you can tilt them, you can rotate them, you can do all sorts of things with your hips, which we don't do. So we're going to start there, just with the hips, getting the hips going, and then we're going to add some touch to that as well. But first, breathe down into the hip, as we've just been doing. Feel that tension, and then let go and see what the movement comes out of that. bring the hands, the arms that we did earlier on, bring that into the movement, feeling, amplify the movement with the arm, amplify the movement with the touch.
Be still, deeply still. Feel your energy, your heart. Feel the sacred pulsation within your divine body.
So the concluding statement or thought from myself is that if this body is our interface to life and our interface to experiencing life, are we going to have a narrow bandwidth, having limited movement, limited sensation, limited interaction, and a limited experience? Or are we going to start to connect with breath, with movement, with touch, to expand our body so that the whole body is alive and interacting with the world, making experience ecstatic, big, wonderful, not
Yeah, and that's what so much of what we both do is. So when we started talking about this, our intention was to use this tonight as an introduction to some of what we do and to some of these practices, and to build on this, to actually start something that we hope to do once a month, and we'll have a date in the next couple of days, that will be going deeper into these experiences, into breath, into movement, into touch, on an ongoing basis, and allow us to explore ourselves, to explore life in that deeper connection of love. So I'm going to stop this now.